Hello, everybody, and Happy New Year as well. Thank you to Mountain Oyster, all the folks at Mountain Oyster for hosting this event. Thank you to Hugh for putting this presentation together. I did work at Raytheon, so I probably could have done a presentation, but it'd been really, really boring. So thank you, Hugh. And then also thank you, Patty. And thank you for all the folks of Friends of Western Art, those putting this together and those attending here. I'm very grateful and I'm honored. And after seeing the list of people that came before me, I'm bewildered. But thank you. Thank you. So we'll go ahead, with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So first page, thank you for your invitation to your first Tuesday of 2026. That's a huge deal. So there's one of my gauchos, one of my recent gauchos, my signature. I've kept my signature the same, even on my sculptures when you come up to look at it. So if you ever see that, you know who it is. So early beginnings as an artist. So this was, I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but oops, did I go too far there? Oh no, so this was a drawing, or color drawing, that I found in my late mother's treasure chest. And we were going through her stuff after she passed, and we found this drawing, and I says, oh my God, I've been doing the gaucho since I was probably 3 years old. I didn't want to bring the actual photo or the actual thing because the paper might fall apart. It's that old. But anyhow, so it started a long time ago. My real name is Jose Manuel Valenzuela, and better known as Manny to everybody here. And there's a funny story behind that. So my name was actually Jose Manuel Renteria. So my parents both came from Mexico. And my dad was old school, and my mom and dad never married, so her name was Renteria. And my dad thought, okay, well, I want him to be a Valenzuela. So he crossed out Renteria on my birth certificate and wrote in Valenzuela. But when I got to junior high, they said, you can't do that. So we had to go to court. So a caveat to that, we go to court, and we're sitting there, and the judge calls up Jose Valenzuela, or Jose Renteria at the time. And my mom nudges me. She says, is that you? I looked at her bewildered. What? And she goes, well, your first name's Jose. And I never knew that. So here I am. So I've never gone by Jose. So Manny seems more appropriate. That's what I've always gone by. So let's go to the next slide, please. So I graduated from Outerback Junior High. Unfortunately, I need these to see what slide I'm on. Yes, junior high. Went to Pueblo High School. I grew up in South Tucson, which, if you know Tucson, South Tucson is a city within Tucson. We have our own mayor, our own police department, all that. And so that's where I grew up. We still go there for tortillas. They have the best tortillas. So that's where I grew up. I did attend Pima College, as we talked about earlier, and I can't give them enough props. I was slated to be, or I wanted to be, a sculptor. So I started with a class that was art. I wanted to learn to weld, so it was arc and oxyacetylene welding for sculpture, and it was taught by Bruce Butler. So then, do you know Bruce Butler? So then I went, so if you ever go down La Cañada, north of River, he has all the artwork there along the road. That's Bruce Butler. And so the other class I took was TIG welding, which I took that later on after I learned lost wax casting. So many of these sculptures you see here, all these bronzes, are lost wax casting process. So I learned to do that. Took the class so many times that Tom Berenger said, why don't you just come in here and be my assistant? So I did. So it was fun. I learned to cast bronze and just help out. And then I took a sculpture class with Mr. Tom Berenger as well. And the sculpture class was learning to work with clay and molding clay, and then eventually you have to make a mold of the clay to pour your wax. So if you're not familiar with the lost wax casting process, it's pretty entailed. There's a lot of steps that go with it, and so it was a very interesting process to learn. And Pima College was excellent. They got an excellent facility. I don't know if they still do. It was a few years ago that I took it, but very good instructors and very good equipment. So the other classes I took a lot of mold making classes, because once you make a sculpture in wax or a sculpture in clay, you have to mold it if you want it to be a bronze. This one here is steel. It's welded steel, so that was part of my education, learning to weld and form and cut steel. So the mold making classes was very interested. That was with Mr. Mark Leventon, and I believe he's an art teacher now, I think at Rincon High. So he's moved on from Pima College, but I learned many different styles of mold making. Even did some life casting. If you don't know what that is, that's where you want to make a design of somebody's arm or leg or whole body. And so I got to try all that, and that was pretty interesting. You take alginate, which is a product made of algae, and you take that algae, you wet it, and then you apply it to somebody's limb, and you would form this gooey stuff, and it cures very quick. Well, that captures all the detail. Your plaster, you mix plaster and you put it over there to give it the rigidity. So we did that. We even did that on a full person. And we had to work very quickly because the alginate dries very quick, because if you wait too long, it'll start shrinking. But it was fun. So my transition to fine art came at age 40. So I've always done art, as you can see, from a young age. But in my 20s, I was doing leather working. I was doing some silversmithing. I was even working with some rattlesnake skins. You find they're roadkill, and I learned how to tan them. And I made all kinds of stuff. And so I've got a lot of experience with crafts, but I wanted to do fine art. And so at age 40, that's why I decided to move on. And the Western style, it just came naturally because as you heard earlier, my grandfather, according to my dad, he was the biggest rancher in Sonora. He said he was the kind of cowboy that when he's herding cattle, in the evening, he would just throw his saddle on the floor, and that was his pillow. So I think it's always been in my blood. So I've always loved the Western way. I grew up with about maybe 5 channels on TV, so I watched a lot of Clint Eastwood, John Wayne, all those movies, all those shows, and I loved them, and I still love them today. And so that was part of the influence for all my Western type work. I need a drink. So, let me see where we're at now. So, the first gallery to represent me, if you guys remember Gallery Row on Skyline and Campbell. So that was, when was it? That was probably 2004. And so, there's my first sculpture. That's acid jazz. So, this sculpture set the tone for the rest of my career as an artist, both in sculpture and painting, and current representation. So I want to make one correction here. So it's Betty Wild and Mark Meyer. So if you heard of Wildmeyer Gallery here and in Scottsdale, great gallery, and so they represent me in both here and in Scottsdale. And the level of art, I'm humbled by the artists that I'm surrounded by in that gallery, in all the galleries I'm in. And I'm also represented in Tubac, in Colorado, 3 galleries, in Telluride, Colorado, Durango, Colorado, and Steamboat Springs. So we did recently take a trip to Steamboat, and it was rushed. We were worried because we didn't know what the weather was going to be like, but we made it. We made it. We had one day that we had to get in and get out, and the clouds were already coming in. But in the summer, Colorado, it's just gorgeous. So here's a couple more sculptures from my earlier day. So we got Brain Freeze and Petrified Falls. So Petrified Falls, it was supposed to be an assignment by the gallery. It was kind of interesting. She said, you know, we live in a desert and water is so important, obviously. And so she says, I want you artists to see what you can come up with to do with water. So this sculpture here, it's called Petrified Falls because if you look at the metalwork there, it looks like water's just running down that piece of metal. And those tubes that are holding it up are water pipe. And then the curved piece of metal on the bottom was meant to represent a catch bin. And so it's I try to make the work representative of something, you know, whether it's a serious or emotional thing, if nothing else, just something that has meaning to it. So other than Clint Eastwood and John Wayne, I did have some other influence. So Albert Giacometti. So I'm sure you've heard or seen some of his work and his abstract figures. Long, slender bodies, very abstracted. So I love that about him. So Umberto Boccioni. So there's one sculpture that really sticks out. It's the unique forms of continuity in space. And if you ever get a chance to see this sculpture, it looks like a conquistador walking through space. It's a bronze, and you see, you know, things sticking out. And what really got me about this sculpture, and I learned this at Pima College through my art history class, is that sculpture was not about the man, but about the air displaced by the man walking through the air. And I thought, man, talk about thinking outside the box. And so these are the types of influences that I like to see and read about, because it really makes you think a little deeper when you look at the work from some of these artists. So next one is Amish Kapoor, Heaven's Gate in Chicago. You guys might know him better for his bean sculpture. It looks like a giant bean, but it's a stainless steel. It's big and it is gorgeous. You can't even find a weld line on there, and it's very impressive. But one of the things that he said really caught my attention. He said about his creations, I don't premeditate them, I let them emerge. And so that's something I try and do. And I'll show you my tools in a little while, and I'll explain. And there's even a video that kind of shows you this, because I don't always, even this one, I didn't start with the drawing. I just had a vision and I just started painting. And so that's why that quote by Mr. Kapoor really stood out. Then we have Mr. Kurt Brill. Anybody know Kurt Brill from Tucson, Arizona? Oh my God, you guys got to see his sculptures. Bigger than life and very neat. Very abstract forms. And so what I like about him is I talked to him once. I said, they're like weird positions. And he says, you know, when I get my models, I just tell them, do what you want. So they'll lay on the floor, they'll sit funny, they'll usually young kids slouching or something. And so I found this quote by him. He says, my search in the visual arts is for the hidden human spirit, that small part that makes us unique, yet finds us a common home, that hidden human spirit. And I love that. So it wasn't him dictating what they wanted him to do, or what he wanted them to pose as. It was them coming out naturally. And so that's another thing that I like to try and create something that's more natural and not so just premeditated. So the other one, Lawrence Lee, unfortunately, he's not here tonight. And I've been a fan of Lawrence Lee for many years, his shaman guys, if you guys ever saw him. But the quote that really I connect with personally is people get out of art what they bring into it. No matter what I'm trying to say with the piece, it always will be perceived through the life lens of the observer. And that is so important. It's like we were talking earlier about this painting here. You know, what it meant. Somebody looked at that and saw something very special. And that painting, actually, I did it for my wife. They said, well, how much is that one? So unfortunately, it's not for sale. So when my wife lost her mom, she would see these yellow butterflies. And so she would always say, oh, my mom's coming to visit, you know. And it was a very sentimental time. And so I created this painting for her as a little girl because her mom was very special to her. She took care of her until the day she passed. So like I say, Lawrence Lee, that looking through the life lens of the observer is very important to him and also to me, because I want people to see my art, but not for what I'm necessarily, what I saw at the time. It's for what you identify with. And then last but not least, Mr. Jerry Harris, a blacksmith. You guys may know Jerry Harris. He's been in Tucson a long time. He's a blacksmith, sculptor, and he's my best friend. And him and I just had great times together, but he has the ability to take a piece of steel and just form these beautiful things. And so that obviously influences me from a physical creative standpoint. And so I've learned a lot from them. And so taking those history classes at Pima Community College did have a big impact, because now I keep my eyes open when I talk to other artists or I read something about other artists. So the Gaucho is born. So I used to live alone in a little house. I'd been divorced, and it was before Laura. And I had bare walls in my house, and it was kind of lonely. I had some sculpture, though. It was really cool. I was intrigued, though, by the abstract paintings I saw going into galleries, and that's where I discovered Lawrence Lee's stuff. So I started with a paintbrush, and I thought, well, I could paint some stuff. I didn't like it. That just didn't do it for me, because it was abstract. It really caught my eye, abstract contemporary type work. So that's where the Gaucho was born. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to make something very minimal. And as you can see, it is very minimal. It's just a slim form. Even his hat is just a flat rim hat with a either square or rectangular top. But there's something about that I just fell in love with, and I haven't stopped doing it yet. So this is one of my very early ones right here. So this one here is called Hard Rain. And unfortunately, it's not one that I was selling either, but my wife convinced me to bring it in. But the reason there's significance to that is because when I did get divorced, it was very hard, and it was very, you don't realize, it just seems easy. You sign a piece of paper and you're done, but it's not. It's very traumatic to both parties. And so I did this, and just my feelings I was feeling at the time, because you're basically starting over, and it's not an easy journey. So I put away the brushes, and I went to the kitchen, and I had several of these things. You're probably right, not without the paint, or no paint on them. Spatulas that my ex-wife gave me, they were in my kitchen drawers. And then I went to the garage, and I had a lot of drywall tools out there. So I grabbed them. I thought, you know what? This is exactly what I need, because I don't want a brush that's gonna give me this exact form. I want something that's going to be more abstract, more free, and just like Kapoor said, something that emerges. And believe me, these let you emerge completely, because you don't have the control you do with a brush. And that's where my style was born. So obviously it's very easy. I don't have paint, but you can kind of see. I mean, with these, and this was one that was done with these tools, by the way. So just by scraping it on there, and obviously the hat and the different styles, even the background was done with one of these tools. So, art isn't something that has to have all these fancy things to do it. It's just the creativity inside of you and whatever you got laying around to make it happen. So there's a picture. If you can't see the tools, you can always come back and see those later. So the gaucho is designed with other elements, of course. I call them categories. I'll put different scenarios. So I have many categories that I work with, and this is just basically for my own record keeping. So I have, first of all, the Vaya con Dios category. Now, many people think that this is religious, and it's not meant to be that. And here's an example of one of them. We start with a very abstract cowboy, which is easy for me, and then I add a rosary. So the story behind that is the rosary I look at as a symbol of good. So, but like I said, it's not religious, so whether you're Catholic or not, it's just a symbol. And the cowboy, he's an abstract because he is a representation of me and my shortcomings as a human being, and how my journey in life is to become a better human being, hopefully. And so that's why I have the representation of good on the painting. So now we're going to have a video here. This is another. And this painting here is actually at Wildmeyer. It's called See No Evil. It's very short. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see my videos are very short. They're like 10 seconds, maybe 14. The reason is I read that most people's attention span is very small. So I keep it very simple. So here's another category, which is my couples category. And obviously that represents love. And then I have my gauchos with horses. And Patty, somewhere out there, she was showing me the horse that she bought years ago. And so there's something about horses' butts and a cowboy riding away. It's just something about it. And so I did fail to mention, so my mom raised me. My dad, they weren't married. He was in town, but he would come visit once a week maybe and take me on vacation for a week and go fishing somewhere. But basically, a lot of it is representation of seeing him right away, basically. So like I said, I try to put a little bit of me in many of these paintings, even though they're very simple. And I do that on purpose because I want people to relate with their own past and put themselves in that position. So this is just my multiple gauchos. So the one on the left there, that one is actually at Wildmeyer Gallery. So, and then the one on the right there was called Phases of Life. So usually my multiple gauchos are just for fun, like the one on the right. But that one there, it's called Phases of Life because of as you see the colors kind of go from one shade all the way to another one. It's basically me reflecting on my life and seeing where I've gone into different, even though I'm still the same person, obviously I've had different chapters in my life. And so that's kind of what that represented. So then the last one is family. So that's obviously important for many reasons. And so a lot of the family paintings that I do, either they're me as a kid or me as an adult seeing my kids. So, what's in a name? A lot. A lot is in a name. One of the most important features is something that you can't see in my work. It's the feeling infused into the paintings as I just talked about. It's something that I don't necessarily make a write-up on every painting and explain what it means, because I want everybody to identify with it on their own terms. I've always been very internalized with my feelings. You can ask Laura. By the way, this is my wife, Laura, here. We've been married 14 years last year. Thank you. So you might say I'm introverted verbally and extroverted visually, because I put it out on paint. So I used to think the different emotions I felt were something I experienced, obviously, that only I experienced. Obviously, I was wrong. Once I figured out that everybody goes through, like divorce, not everybody, but hopefully not everybody. But, there's many things that people go through, maybe not having a dad around or whatever it is. So those are the types of things that I try and put into it. So my work is basically about life. It's about the different phases of life that we see. We see love. Sorry, not that great with the microphone, but or did we pass that part? Yeah. So you see love, happiness, sadness, anger, and trust. Yes, even anger. Sometimes anger is a very big emotion, and sometimes that does drive some really good paintings. So. So the names chosen for each piece is an integral part of each meaning. And what does that mean? For example, this painting here on the left, Mama, I'm Coming Home. It was hanging out there by the bar at the last Mountain Oyster Club show. And I don't know if there's any rock and roll fans here, but I like Ozzy Osbourne. And so, that when he passed, it was just, for me, it was just symbolism of his passing and his contribution to the whole rock and roll, genre. So everything doesn't have to be personalized for me as far as love or anything to do with family. It can be something external, such as the passing of somebody that you respect for whatever reason. I don't respect all his life, but at least the rock and roll, he did produce some stuff. The one on the right was a very early painting, and this one, called My Father, My Hero, was a painting of a boy and his dad, and the boy's just looking up at his dad, and it has extra meaning for me because when I was little, my dad would come visit, and I used to think, man, he's the tallest, the strongest, the smartest, and obviously when I got older, I figured out, well, he's only this tall. But it was very special for me, and so that, even though it's very simple, the feeling that I was trying to represent there, I think is pretty obvious. So now, the Manny Valenzuela brand. So my brand is a colorful mixture of Hispanic heritage and Western flair, and as I've explained why. The abstract contemporary designs are created to interact with the viewer through intrigue by that viewer, and like Lawrence Lee said, through the viewer's lens. And so I want everybody to bring their own life. Don't think about why I painted it, but what does it mean to you? If it stops you, what feelings is it making you feel? So today I don't use my old spatula anymore, and Laura won't let me use this in the kitchen, and I don't do any drywall. But if you get a chance to see some of the tools I do use, anywhere from this size. Matter of fact, this might have been the one I used on this guy. It's so when you're feeling larger than life, that's what you need. And then when you get down to some of these smaller ones, obviously, you got something small. But yeah, it's something that, like I say, the brush makes me too controlled, and I don't want that control. I want it to emerge on its own, as Mr. Kapoor said. Take a drink of water. And if if you notice on the photo on the bottom right there, I have these magnetic strips on my wall in my studio. So I have approximately 43 palette knives, all different shapes, sizes, and so when I say that's what I use, it's really what I use. Every now and then, I will do a background with the brush, but very seldomly do I do a painting with them. And then on the upper right photo there, you see me at, it's called a quick draw event at Tubac, for those of you who visit Tubac. So around November, they have this event called a quick draw event, and it's a charity. It benefits the schools of Southern Arizona. And what it is, they give you an hour and a half, and I believe the one I did this year was 24 by 12-inch canvas, and you start with a bare canvas, and you end up with a completely finished piece of art that they auction off at the end of the hour and a half, and then the money is collected and given to the kids. And one of our artists there, I think this is her second year, and she got on a scholarship to Pima Community College. And so it makes you feel good. So as an artist, all you artists out there, you know, it makes you feel good to give back to the community. And so Laura and I, we try to give back where we can, even to the little doggies. So let's see, do we have a video? I think we do. Yeah. So we got a video, and it's of a painting on the left there. So right there, you just see the background. It's a black background, obviously. That's my little studio. Myself, if I was out shopping for art, that's the kind of art I would love to have, something like. I paint what I love and what I would love to see in my house. So my sculpture is still a very integral part of my brand. So you see a couple sculptures there. Obviously, they're similar to the one you see here, which this one, by the way, I had to borrow from Wildmeyer. They have quite a few of my sculptures. So my earlier sculptures were limited in colors. I typically applied, so this is welded steel, by the way, powder coated, but in the past, I would just apply an acid to that. Different acids would produce different variations of brown, maybe a little black, reddish, and then I would clear coat them. But once I started doing the powder coat, it's nice because it adds another element of color, and it's almost endless, the colors. But along with that, it's very durable in comparison to something that you rust and then you clear coat. So I don't want to put everybody to sleep. Just checking where I'm at. So, and the thing I still love about sculpture is that, you know, with paintings, obviously you can enjoy them, but they are two-dimensional. Sculpture, depending on the size, you can sometimes go in them. There used to be one at the library downtown where you could walk through it. And so those interactive sculptures, they have textures, you can feel them, and it's kind of nice. So I still love sculpture for that reason. So let me go. So here's a few other sculptures. So the one on the left, so you remember Acid Jazz. So this one here is Echo, and he's also a Cocopelli, but very abstracted. So I minimalized him a lot. And then the one in the middle, we'll show you a video in a minute. That one is just a hat for one of my sculptures that eventually became a sculpture. And then the one on the right I call Bucky. That's just an abstracted bull. So now we're going to see a video. So, once again, Lawrence Lee said it best. People get out of art what they bring to it. No matter what I'm trying to say with the piece, it will always be perceived by the life lens of the observer. So that's very important in his art and in mind. So think of Lawrence when you think of me. So questions I usually get asked: do I use a model for my initial drawings and paintings? And the answer is no, I'm the model. So most of my paintings are created without drawings. So I just, like you saw the picture or the painting of Blackjack Johnny, this painting here, I just have a vision in my head. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But usually they work out. But when I do need a model, I just throw on and I do have a bigger gaucho hat. But this was the easier one to bring. The other one is huge. And then I've got my duster if I want a duster. But I'll just dress up for whatever I'm trying to do. So this one here on the left is called Remember When. And there's a photo of me in my studio just a quick photo. I don't need all the detail because I'm using a palette knives. It doesn't matter anyhow. But this painting here was done I'm 62. I turned 63 this year. And so it was just me sitting in my studio and reflecting back on my life and thinking about where I've been and where I'm going. So I did work at Raytheon Hughes, Raytheon, and HE Microwave, 36 years. So I'll encompass one company, basically. I worked for 8 years. The last 8 years were on the Navajo Nation in Farmington, New Mexico, supporting Raytheon. I retired as a manufacturing engineer. And if you ever see the artwork of the Navajos, it's amazing. The reason the Navajos, they have this plant in Farmington, New Mexico on the reservations is because they're so good with their hands. And it's evident in their artwork. And so Raytheon opened this facility for them. And I'm very proud of my service and my support of the folks and our troops and our kids really out there. Actually, for me, it'd be closer to grandkids. So obviously, I listen to music. I listen to all genres, not just Ozzy Osbourne. And so it depends what mood I want to get into, what I'm painting. Do I want something? If I'm painting the Rosary, I'm not playing Ozzy Osbourne or Black Sabbath. No, it's something mellow because that I do use brush, a zero brush. It's so small, and even that sometimes isn't small enough. If you get a chance, you can look at the detail of the cross, and I try to put some detail into it. I also have congos and bongos in my studio, and so sometimes Laura will hear me. She goes, "Oh, you're getting in the mood." So I'll start playing with Santana or something. And so anyhow, it's just a way for me to get in that zone, per se. As I'm doing it more now that I've retired, it's easier to get in that zone. So like I said before, my goal is to involve the viewer in my creations and hope that they develop their own vision of what they see on canvas or in metal. By using my feelings and emotions, I hope to create the opportunity for a personal connection. So here's some more that were more for fun, but it still uses myself as a model. And on the left, that was just 3 guys with shotguns instead of the pistol. There's a recent one. So this one here is got a neat story because it's called Between Good and Evil. And so even though I like guns, I like to go shooting, and I've always had as a kid. But I needed a symbolism, and so I've got the rosary on one side, the gun on the other, and the gaucho in the middle. And so that's where that came from. So in summary, my work is about life and all the feelings and emotions we experience. And I say we because I know everybody experiences them. And I just put mine on canvas. I strive to create more love and happiness, not just on canvas, but in real life. Family is very important. And I guess if you get older, you obviously realize that. My wife, Lorna, like I said, celebrated 14 years, and we've got 5 grandkids and 1 more on the way. And together we stand in this, and I mean together. She helps me with everything. Everywhere we go together, Steamboat, Durango, I know it's hard going to Durango, but somebody's got to do it. But she's my partner in life and in this artistic journey, and I couldn't do it without her. And with that, we'll open it up to questions, and I'm just going to flip through a few of my past paintings, just so you can get to see. So, are there any questions?
How long does it take you to do each one?
Let's see. So the rosaries, maybe 2 to 3 hours, depending if I'm doing them. If I'm doing a lot of them, you get faster, obviously. And then the cowboys, you saw the video, 10 seconds. The background took longer. No, it's a lot of it is more of the creative side, like this one here. I tried to do a few more paintings. Betty and Mark do have a few, but I don't know that any of them really captured what I had imagined, like this one did. So the painting to me is easy. It's what is going behind that, the creative part of it. And that idea. Sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and I'll write a note on my phone, and then the next day I don't know what the heck I was trying to say. It's like Jerry Seinfeld with that joke. He couldn't remember the reason for the joke, but so the painting to me is fast. I've gotten really good at using these tools. I mean, really good. I can. If I ever retire from this, I'm going to go work at a bakery. I'm going to be really good at it too. So it's a hard thing to put a time on, because the creativity to me is the hardest part. It's coming up with a design that is going to be good. Because there's a lot of designs that I've done, and I've done them fast, and as soon as they dry, I'm going over them again because they weren't that great. So it's taken a long time for me to learn this process and perfect what I do.
Do you work at several paintings at a time, or do you have just one painting?
I usually work on several, just because they have to dry. And so when we were in Colorado, we lived in Durango, Colorado, while I was working at Raytheon up there. And I had a huge studio, 624 square feet. It was beautiful. And so I could work on a lot of paintings. And so now I don't have that luxury. So I use a spare bedroom to put them on tables to dry while I work on other pieces. I think there was a question.
Compositionally, the head is so important in your pieces. Do you start with that to set up the paintings, or where do you start?
So where do I start with my composition? Is it start with the hat? Usually it does. And that's because I've done it where I've started the body, and then I realized, I don't have enough room for the head. So that's one of those reworks. So yeah, you're right. It kind of sets the tone, and it also kind of sets the tone for the width of the design. I think I had a question back there. Or let me grab him first. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.